and welcome back to the Business Building Book Club. I'm your host, Coach Molly from Three Pines Leadership and visibilityhacking.com, and I am so glad you're here with me for yet another episode. It's another conversation episode, so I'm clearly not alone. And I'm glad I'm not alone because today we're talking about the hero's two journeys. And yes, these storylines are about a single hero, but the best way to grow your business, I always tell you, my friends, is to do it with someone else. So I'm bringing on another business building expert, a trend setting expert, nonetheless. So welcome. And as you know, I don't introduce my guests. So who are you and what do you do?
Oh, thank you, Molly. I'm Dwayne Jeffries. I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm with Austin Found. I own a consulting company and an import company, and we focus on trend setting and trend research. And really, what we're all about is building a global movement of entrepreneurial innovators that want to change the world with their ideas, their businesses, and their services, make a global impact. So, I'm excited to help people along their journey, and I'm excited today to talk to you about the Heroes 2 journey.
Oh, I love it. I love that you talk about trends and things like that. And we were talking briefly before the episode started about whether or not trends are really like like really telling the future telling, kind of sorcery or something, or is it like looking back at past trends? And I thought your answer was so fascinating. So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to tell me: is it future casting? Is it looking at past trends, or is it something magical in between?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. If I had to draw on my little whiteboard behind me, it would be probably like a vesica Pisces, two circles that overlap, and then there's a sweet spot there in the center. And the sweet spot is that intersection where things are somewhat fluid. And when I mean fluid, is they're constantly changing. And so what you have is you have this big kind of a macro idea of where you want things to go. And then in terms of trends, and I'm in product trends mostly. So consumer products, consumer product trends, like why is this fashionable? Or why is this home decor finish fashionable? Or why is this color fashionable? Why are these back to school items turning into this 80s and 90s retro? Well, I'm the guy that kind of works with big retail to bring some of those products to the store shelf and to life. So yes, you're right that it does live kind of in two spaces. Um, and then what happens is as as that macro kind of idea is set, then those small seeds in the micro, more granular, are sown, and it basically moves the populace in that direction. Now, we're not talking about 80s and 90s retro Back to the Future school supplies, okay? Because that's very granular. I mean, that's very micro. But there's an overarching feel of nostalgia that would shape why that would be popular, right? The good old days. I mean, the good old days now are the days when I was like, I was in my teens, the 80s and the 90s. I mean, so who would have thought that the 80s and the 90s would have been the good old days? And people are reflective like that. I mean, things like trapper keepers and those plastic black backpack charms, jellies. Who would have thought that those would have come back around? I mean, seriously, mom jeans?
Yep.
Seriously?
I just hope the hair doesn't come back.
Oh, the teased up hair. Let the Cyndi Lauper style, girls just want to have fun. And I will tell you that, when we talk about trends, it's interesting because that that whole idea of girls just want to have fun, as we're moving towards this kind of shift and change in what's going on. It was funny because since you opened the door, I have to address it. And it is, you said, is this something astrological? And is this something like, physically planned? Like, and again, I got to bring it back to it's two things coming together as one. So as we approach 2024, I'm a big proponent of metaphysics. I'm into metaphysics. That's another whole part of a cool story that maybe I might share. But I think these two things live together in some ways. So trends and forecasting and looking at the future in a unique way to develop products that make an impact, not just an impact like oh, it makes my life convenient. I'm talking about an actual inside impact too. Okay. Products and services that actually move you and change you, transmute you. There's a transformation. And that's the beauty of this whole thing, the hero's two journeys that you'd asked me to kind of come and be a part of.
Yeah, I resonate so much with the work that you do because I'm also on a mission to change the world. And the way that we change the world is by recognizing that the systems around us, that includes the products we use, that includes the trends we play into, are all designed by other humans. So we don't need to feel like we're incapable of making that change. I'm a huge chess player and I have lots of tattoos, and one of my legs is covered in tattoos of chess pieces. And I have two pawns, and people wonder, like, why did I go through the pain to get pawns, such meaningless pieces tattooed on my body? But it's as a reminder that even if you feel like you are the lowest positioned piece on the chessboard, you can still win a match when you play that piece correctly. You can still capture a king if you play it correctly. And so when you empower other entrepreneurs and other designers and other visionary thinkers to push forward with their ideas, they need to understand that they have the power to change the world. One product can change the world. We've
Sure.
seen the biggest brands in the world start with one crazy idea. And oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a ton of fun, crazy ideas, and it, but and this is where a lot of people, a lot of designers, and a lot of ideators get stuck. They get stuck in the idea phase. How many times have you been sitting at Thanksgiving watching some TV show and some random commercial comes on, and it's a product literally that someone in the family has thought of, and you said, "I thought of that. I drew that picture."
My
But
computer must be listening to me.
so this is the way that I perceive this. Okay, this is my perception. I'm not basing this in fact. This is really just based on my own kind of general convictions as it relates to this matter, and that is that those ideas are out there, kind of like floating particles. Okay, metaphysically speaking, they're out there, whether you can see it or not. Okay, they're
Yeah.
out there, and they're looking for spots like dandelions blowing
Yeah.
in the wind to fall and take root.
Yeah.
Now, it needs to take root on fertile ground. It needs to be, uh, you know, massaged and managed properly and taken care of.
Yeah.
And then that idea can kind of come to fruition. But too many people don't take care of it.
Yeah.
They do nothing with it.
Yeah.
It comes in and then it just fades away. It just disappears.
Yeah.
It just falls on non-fertile ground. So where I come in to kind of try to help is talking through and applying frameworks that help you move that idea from that stage to an actual action, and then something on the other side, because you are passing through the gap, right?
Mm.
You've got idea here, you've got kind of the problem here that you're solving, and then you've got the execution of that, right? And then you've got the case studies and all the things that go along with it. So
It's
so
like
yeah,
the Jungian idea of the collective unconscious. And there was this
absolutely.
really cool study that I learned in university where they took the New York Times crossword and they took a whole bunch of people and isolated them. They kept them away from the New York Times crossword for a week.
Right.
And they gave them an edition of the crossword from a few days previous where everyone else in the public had already solved the crossword. And they looked at pretty much, they compared people who had never, like, a crossword that nobody else in the world had ever done except for the study group, and then compared it to a comparable one where everyone else in the world had already solved it. And the one that everyone else had already solved was so much quicker to be solved by the study group. And they concluded that it may be because there is this this idea that once we start coming up with ideas, once we start thinking things in our own minds, we kind of have this, maybe it's a frequency kind of resonation or whatever, but there is some way that that collective unconscious will hold on to that idea. And you're helping
Absolutely.
people build that bridge of actually going, all right, I have the ability to pull from that. I have created a space for those seeds to fall. Now, how do I
Absolutely.
actually nurture those and how do I cultivate them into a beautiful farm of ideas, into a revenue generating stream, into ideas and products and services that will literally change the world? That
And
is fantastic.
that's interesting that you said that, because there are two parts to ideas. In some cases, it is about revenue generation,
Yeah.
but in other cases, it's about changing for the benefit of something else, right? For the ecosystem or for the benefit of the future, regardless of whether there's money involved or not. And in some cases, that's where you say the best ideas are born, is that I am born to serve you with this idea. And as a benefit, it's not necessarily that I was seeking money or revenue per se, but as a benefit, relationships change, but indirectly, money flows that way. And the other thing too is, when you get around, you need to get around the right people. If you're trying to develop an idea, you need to surround yourself with people who are encouraging you to take the next step. And when I say take the next step, it's just small steps,
Mhm.
small, positive momentum steps in a direction that gets you to where you want to go. It was interesting this morning. I was watching something because I wanted to make an analogy to life being like Everest, and how there are multiple checkpoints along the way.
Yeah.
And while you can run from the bottom and attempt to go to the top so fast, if you do it so fast, you can get sick
Yeah.
and die. Okay. If you pace yourself one step at a time and you focus on that, and you focus on the moment and living in the moment, being present, but also moving towards the future, you have that goal in mind, then you can bring it to fruition. A lot of people just run in multiple different directions, jumping from this teacher to this teacher to this teacher, and they have no path, no plan, no direction.
Yeah.
So, anyway, sorry, I just hopped off there, but anyways, I do feel that life is a lot like Everest, right? It's this
Yeah.
pathway. It's a climb. It's so beautiful if you take time to just look at the nuances of what's going on around you, and the goal is just kind of like this climb to the heavens. And through that whole process, just like what we talked about before, the hero's two journeys is that something beautiful happens on the other side. Now, we haven't even gotten into that, but it is true that it's not necessarily the destination, it's the process, the climb.
Yeah. So let's dive into the two journeys. So to recap for those of you at home, the two journeys, we're going to talk about them, but I have a feeling we're going to talk about one of them more than the other. So we have that surface level experience, that surface level story about the hero goes off and they want to achieve, they want financial success, they want a business that's going to thrive, whatever that story is that maybe on the surface level drew you as an entrepreneur to your calling. We're going to have that story. There's going to be battles along the way. There's going to be some walls. There's going to be some obstacles. There's going to be great problem solving moments where you're using your logic, you're getting around, and you're getting some kind of great gain from it. And that's the story that we're usually telling. We're so easily taught to tell that kind of surface story. But it's that second journey, that behind the scenes, that undercover journey, or maybe it's a foundation, but maybe it's also a little bit more in the air and in the energy around this initial surface story. And that journey is the journey of transformation. And that to me is it's a lot more about mindset. It's a lot more about transforming who you are and what your belief system is and what your understanding and your perspective on the world is. So what do you think about the two journeys?
Wow. Um, I'm super stoked, and I didn't really know where to start on this whole thing, in telling this story and what it looks like. You know, um, I believe that we have multiple journeys that are kind of layered in, you know, over the course of our lives. And each of those moments have the opportunity to shape and define us and take us to that next level. And that's kind of the analogy that I was making with Everest, is that life is levels, right? It's decades, or it's moments, right? It's years, months, days, minutes, and all of those things, from my perspective, are not a coincidence. Okay, they are not planned per se. Now, I can have my own plan and be working it in a direction, and I believe that I'm rewarded for that discipline, but there's no such thing really as a coincidence. You just have to recognize the nuance, because there's a lesson to be learned in that. So let me tell you a story. Okay. It actually, I mean, this is a long story of sorts that moves through the decades and reveals the warrior, the diplomat, and the philosopher. Okay. And I say it's a trifecta of sorts, or it's a trinity of sorts. You know, we talked about the Vesica Pisces in the past, and those two converging to create kind of the center. Now we've got three converging to create kind of the center, this complex thing coming and becoming, in essence, revealing you, the truest character, through this process transformation that we talked about. And we're not talking about pinnacle Everest type transformation. We're talking about getting there and realizing that the transformation was along the path. And so it all started really that, I was working a couple jobs. I was going to college, and I decided to be a graphic designer. Okay. And, I was doing fine art, and, you get to draw all different types of people, and you've got studies, and you're doing your projects. And so I'm working at night, and I'm working on the weekends. I'm working at night at a printing company. I'm working on the weekends at UPS, and I'm going to school during the day. So I come home from my job, and I just fall into the bed for an hour, set my alarm to wake up to do my homework, and then rush to go to college. And it was just this constant rat in a wheel type reality. And one of those days, I got up, and I'm in my car. I had a 1986 black Toyota MR2. Okay, I mean, it's literally the tiniest car that they make besides the Miata. Okay, which is coming back, by the way. And actually, if you look right now, Miata or MR2s are really coming back too, especially that model. My son is looking at those, and he's like, "Dad, these retro cars with the flip up lights, they are so sick." And I'm like, dude, seriously? I mean, like,
Flip
you,
up lights.
you want a car just because it has flip up lights. But
Tell him
anyways,
that it's also really cool to have wind down windows
yes,
and an 8-track.
no, 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 no. Yeah, well, speaking of distractions inside of cars that you have to fiddle with, I live kind of in the mountains, outside of Louisville, Kentucky. And I say mountains, it's more hills. I live off what they call Brooks Hill Road, and I'm driving to school. I'm rushing to get there. Something falls into the floorboard. I reach off into the floorboard, and when I do that, I literally, my car goes off the hill. I mean, and I'm not talking like hill. I'm talking about hill. Okay, like off the hill. I'm cruising along, fighting to try to keep the car back on the road. And like everything's, it's literally, I feel like Sherlock Holmes, like everything's like slowing down. It's like, ooh. And I hear the branches like hitting the side of the car, like tack, 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 tack. And I'm like, crap, a paint job, how much is this going to cost? And then I look up and I see right ahead of me, there's this huge kind of a bump and a telephone pole. And I brace for impact, lights out. So I come to, I was unconscious. I come to, my head went through the windshield, but I had a baseball cap on, and it came down over my head, and it went through the windshield, and my knee went through the dash. I literally wrapped the steering wheel around the steering column, like bracing for impact. Like it just folded. Yes, totally crazy. I get out. I'm like in shock. I'm walking around my car. And that's really the moment. It's one of the moments, but it's one of the main moments that changed the trajectory of everything. Okay. I was going to school, I was studying on that moment, literally, like I had, you know, it paid my car off. It paid any debt that I had. I had $2,000 after this accident. And then it allowed me the opportunity to move away from home, to follow my dream to be a graphic designer. Okay. So that was the start of the story, right? There was this huge tragedy. I lost everything, but that loss allowed me to gain the ability to tell my parents, hey, look, I'm going to move away and I'm going to follow my dream to be a graphic designer. And that would be, I guess, stage one of Everest, if we were to tell that beginning of the story. So, do you want me to keep talking, or do you have any questions? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I love it. I love it. And it's that journey that changes us, that changes our understanding. And we can have them on, I love your analogy of Everest, because we can have these heroes' journeys and we can have these journeys of transformation that are these minute steps that could literally be a story that happened in one day and have that massive change. It doesn't necessarily have to be all 17 steps through some of these frameworks. It's literally like one moment happened and everything changes.
And
How
that's kind of,
how does this journey fit in to the way that you work with trends and the way that you work with your clients? Like, how do you merge those together?
well, it's interesting because I followed my dream to be a graphic designer. And, I went off on my journey. I got to the publishing company. I was 18 years old. I got to the publishing company that I wanted to work for. And I came in with my portfolio and I was dapper and I had a board member's, letter of recommendation. And I walked into the art director and I opened my portfolio up and I said, sir, I'm here to apply for a graphic designer's job. And he said, well, let's see what you've got, and he started looking through my stuff. And you know how you're sitting in an interview or a moment and you're looking, like, I'm reading the body language, I'm looking at the facial expressions, and I can tell that this guy, he's not a believer. Okay. Believer meaning like he's not believing that Dwayne is bringing something that's going to make an impact as a graphic designer at this company.
Yeah.
And he basically said, son, you've done some good work, but you don't have any experience, and you have minimal college. Um, I just recommend that you go back to school, learn some more, and then come back and see me later. And he said, oh, by the way, they're hiring. I know they have some spots in the mailroom at $4.25 an hour. You're welcome to apply. So if you can imagine, like, I had the wreck, I moved away, I chased the dream, and now another obstacle. And so that obstacle was a seed that was uncomfortable. So I'm here out of my comfort zone, thinking I'm going to be the warrior. Remember, I told you the warrior, the diplomat, the philosopher. I'm going to be the warrior. I'm going to take on the world. I'm going to slay this dragon. And then I'm like, okay, guys, yeah, I'll take that no bag position for 425. And I stayed at that place for a long time, and I worked myself through that system and worked myself into what they call pre-press in print production. Back in the day, pre-press wasn't digital.
Yeah.
It was manual. So like I was the guy who scanned photographs before they were digital and adjusted the colors and the correction. And I got really interested in the aesthetics of things, the beauty, the lighting, and all of those types of things. But I found myself now I went back to school, right? I'm following the lead. I'm back to school. I'm going to study art education now, right? And I'm rolling through that, and I'm studying art education. I'm sitting in here in pre-press, and I'm in an office, and they keep saying, Dwayne, you can't get up and visit people. You can't go talk to other folks. Like, you've got to sit in your office. You've got to do your work. Literally, that was the picture that I literally put on the top of my big fat Mac back in the day, was a picture of a guy in black and white, and he looked absolutely bored out of his mind. Like, you could see the sheer boredom. And I did this in Photoshop, and I hung it up there, and I saw this little carrot, a little color carrot hanging there. And this guy was just staring at the carrot. And I realized, and on the other side, there was a guy in armor, like the warrior that I was talking about. Like, dude, you're living between worlds here, okay? You're sitting here in this office. It's going against everything that you are as an individual. I always say it's like like a horse, in a cage that has to run, or a lion or an eagle, or like whatever your spirit animal is, the one that needs to be powerful and just jump out and break out. I realized that this just wasn't it. And something dropped in my lap. And this all goes back to exactly what you said a minute ago. And that was, a short window of time can change everything. And that's what happened. I was going to college, I was studying, and I had a teacher, a mentor of sorts, a guide, that pulled me aside and said, you did really good. It was a public speaking class. He said, you really are great at public speaking. She was pouring this encouragement into my life. And she was much older, okay, in terms of, teachers, like in the 60s range. And here I am, like an 18-year-old. And she's saying, and she had such a unique wit and humor and such strength that I just admired. And she said, you know what? You need to use your ability to talk to join the parliamentary debate team and start debating. And so
Yes.
I joined the parliamentary debate team. I started debating. I'm in this thing. This all happened in one semester, right? It's like fall. I'm doing parliamentary debate. I'm still working at this place. And then kind of the universe and things start to shift. I'm engaged, okay, to be married. Um, and I get a job opportunity, basically. And my parents were in retail, and there was a job opportunity to become a sales rep, just selling like mom and pops, drugstores, Hallmarks, just selling gifts for an agency. And when I say agency, it would kind of like cry like, or, uh, if you're talking realtor, that agency model. And I would go work for an agency. And I had two options. One was one in Southern Kentucky, and one was Middle Tennessee in terms of territory, two different companies. I didn't have any experience. I knew nothing about sales. It's just my parents worked in retail. And that was presented to me. And at that moment, I didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
So I went to my guide. I went to my mentor. I went to Dr. Snyder and I said, Dr. Snyder, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm afraid. I don't know what to choose. I don't know where to go. Like, I don't have a resume. I've never written a resume before. I don't even know what to do. She literally said, Dwayne, come by the house, and I will sit down with you and we will write your resume. And this is where I say, in some cases, it's all about semantics. And also from a mentor side, it's all about using that knowledge to leverage. We think of ourselves in one way, but other people see us in another. And I can tell you 100%, Dr. Snyder saw something in me that I did not see in myself. And she sat down and she helped me put that resume together. And, I ended up getting that job. They hired me over the phone. And, it was interesting. We were talking about parliamentary debate, and she said, um, well, we're going to list you here as co-captain of the parliamentary debate team. I said, there were only two people on the debate team, the
That's good.
captain and me. And she said, well, technically, you're the co-captain.
Yep.
So that's why I say it's a matter of semantics and how you position yourself. A lot of you in your story, in your journey, you discount the things that have happened over time, and you discount your value, and that shapes your reality and your mindset. Remember, I talked about seeds falling on fertile or not fertile ground. It just, you don't allow yourself to bloom. So in this moment, I took the job. I said, look, I'll go peanut butter and loaf of bread in the car. I'll drive all day. I'll do bologna. Like, I was just throwing it out there, and I got a job with a company called Team Helveston at the time, working mom and pops. And first year out of the gate, um, I tripled my income. I kept my paycheck from before, which was, and I still have it today. It was $15,000 for an entire year. The entire year was $15,000. And I worked 40 hours plus overtime at the publishing company. And then I tripled, I went from 15 to like $36,000 in the first year. I got rookie of the year. And then I basically went into the next kind of somewhat of a stratosphere, into the million dollar producer club. And then I consistently started to produce. And because of my production, they pulled me aside and they said, hey, would you consider doing a hybrid a hybrid sales position. We don't have anybody that's doing this, but you have the ability, even though you don't have the education, you have the ability to potentially do this. That means you call on mom and pops, and you also get an opportunity to call on key accounts. And when I say key accounts, I'm talking about my first key account was Tractor Supply, and in 2004, this was my moment to step up to the plate. And I was super afraid. I knew nothing about big box retail. I knew nothing about key accounts. And Tractor Supply, if you go back and look at their stock chart in 2004, it's literally like, in the dollars. And now it's in the hundreds of dollars. Like it literally looks like a rocket. And that was the next level on Everest. And I feel like, we're going to run out of time in telling this story, but that was my next opportunity. And that was the next moment that I met my new guide, Dr. Snyder. Stood at the front porch, like grandma does, and waves as you go on to your next level, and rise to the next level, moving up, to reach your pinnacle, your purpose. And so I I met a new encourager. Her name was Monica Loving. She was absolutely amazing. She again poured life into me. And one of the biggest things that she could, you know, through this hybrid change of moving into key accounts, I had problems. You don't know, like, these are the things you're supposed to. It's very complex. It's very complex compared to selling a mom and pop, where you walk in with a catalog and you say, "Hey, you like this item? Okay." I mean, it's very simple. This is much more complicated. And Monica told me, she said, and I had many, many mentor calls with her. She said, "Look, at the end of the day, they cannot kill you and they cannot eat you. So just get up and push forward." And I took that, and I still believe that philosophy today. It still rings true in my head. Anytime I kind of come up on a challenge that I feel like I cannot get through, or I don't have the personal power to get through, that echoes in my head, or echoes, just like you would be standing out there in one of your sections of Everest, yelling it out to the world that, they can't kill you, they can't eat you. And that basically propelled me to my next level into key accounts. And as I started to develop my relationships with key accounts, I started to move into trends, trend directives. Directives are kind of like recipes, right? Yeah. Like a recipe that you use to make the most wonderful brownies. Well, a directive is the same way. You want to make the most wonderful products and have those beautiful sets that you see when you walk through Target. Like, those are planned, guys. So it takes a lot of planning. So anyways, so that was the next level. And any questions? I feel like, there's so many cool things to talk about here.
Oh, I love it. So you showed us examples of the warrior. So who's the diplomat? What does the diplomat look like?
That was the diplomat. That was the diplomatic move. That was the move from fighting it out and really trying to discover purpose and being let out to just go to the next level and move from this mom and pop warrior to this key account diplomat. Logical. Who understands relationships have value. Not just what can you do for me, not what can I do, because see, I'm working with the retailer, the key account, Tractor Supply, and an importer, a factory, or a supplier, and I am the diplomat of sorts. I'm trying to negotiate a mutual benefit, a win-win for both parties through what I call front salesperson is. And that's why I say, I've moved into trends, product development, and front-facing sales. And that was the revelation, or the revealing of the diplomat. Yeah. And then this is where the story gets amazing. And if you want me to continue, I will. It's
we got a few more minutes.
Well, then I'll be quick. This next phase was literally the most impactful phase of my entire life. Okay. In 2006, I got to take my first China trip with the key account teams. I moved from being a mom and pop into full-time key accounts. And I became kind of like a sourcing liaison for the company that I worked for. And I took my first overseas trip. I took 2 that year in 2006. And from that moment on, it changed everything. changed my perception of the world, of people, of business. Um, and I realized that, you know, it's not about just an importer that's in the United States. It's about a global supply chain.
Yeah.
And I started to make strategic moves at that point in time to um, continue to develop those relationships overseas. And that has continued. Now, the sad part was that, from 2006 to 2008, things are going great. We're building relationships. And approaching 2009, I come home from this amazing overseas trip, an 18-hour Hong Kong flight. I get home. I'm loving seeing my kids, who's like 1 and 3. Um, I'm in the car. I've got, Papa John's pizza steaming in the background, and I get a call. And that call is my superior at the company that I worked for 11 years. And I'm faced with another collision of sorts, like the first one. Uh, this is one literally where he says, "Oh, you've got the kids in the car, back later." Like literally, that was the call. "Kids in the car, I'll just call you back later." There's no front, no bump, no nothing. And I'm like, "Whoa, what is going on here?" So I run home. I get everybody settled. I run upstairs to my office. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, what's up?" And he's like, "Dwayne, there's no easy way to say this. We no longer need your services." And I'm like, "What?" I like, "There's no talking about this. There's no discussing. No, we're in final stages of interviews for your position. Pack up your box and send your stuff to us." And I was like, "What the?" Yeah, it's a collision. I was in shock. Just like the first accident, this was not an accident of sorts. This was a moment of transformation, a kicking the eagle out of the nest.
Yeah.
Okay. Because what happened after that was transformational. Um, I, you know, I left that job. I started my own company. The first year was very difficult, but I had supplier partners rally around me and lift me up, support me for a year. And then after that, it has been nothing but flying to the top of Everest. Um, it was an amazing ride, but this is even more amazing. I got on this ride. I started doing kind of the same types of things that I was doing before. I started my own import company after having another mentor moment with Marcy Satig, who told me, "Look, you've got to start your import company. You're doing all the work. Just do it. Start it. Why would you wait?" And in doing that, it opened up the door for me to expand my ability to continue to educate myself because of the revenues that we're able to pour in. So, and I'm sure I've missed a mentor along the way, a Mary Bevel. You've got Dr. Snyder, you've got Monica Loving, you've got Mary Bevel, you've got Marcy Satig, all of these powerful women. And still, I'm in the diplomat phase. And at that moment, I crossed over after I met my final mentor, and that may be a story for another day.
That is a fantastic open loop. Oh, I feel like I'm going to have you on the Lifelong podcast for the rest of this story. Ooh.
That story is very complex, very spiritual. It is the combination of those three things coming together by way of the transformation into, in essence, the philosophy. So, yeah, maybe the next time.
Oh, I love it. Oh, thank you so much for telling us that story.
Yeah,
My
absolutely.
friends, it's time we got to wrap this stuff up. So, do you have any last words for everyone listening at home? Oh, we froze.
I'm here. I'm here.
All right. Do you have any last words for everyone?
I say, my last words would really just be enjoy the journey. It really is a journey. It is your hero's journey. So as, you know, those seeds of experience fall to the ground, nurture them, because those are the ideas that can grow to make a global impact for you in your future.
Oh, that got me chills. I love it. Oh, guys, thank you guys so much for joining me for this episode of the Business Building Book Club. Oh, I love the hero's journey, guys. And no matter if you're looking at your journey over the course of your entire lifespan and your entire career, or you're looking simply at a moment that drastically changed your life or changed the way that you see the world, you and your journey are worthy. Nobody in the world has your unique set of experiences, knowledge, passion, strength, or mentors even. And it's that unique combination that sits you in a place that nobody else in the world is. So I need to hear your voice. The world needs to hear your voice, your ideas, bring them to light. There are amazing people who can help you bridge that gap, who can help you create the foundation and nourish those beautiful ideas that come to your mind, my friends. Thank you guys for joining me again. I'm Coach Molly from Three Pines Leadership and visibilityhacking.com. I will see you again for our next episode where we dive back into expert secrets from the one and only Russell Brunson. Remember, you can get your hands on your own copy absolutely free. Just cover shipping. Links are in the description, all of that. It's the best book in the entire world. We've heard this before. Yes, beautiful book, and it's hardcover. All right, guys, I'll see you next episode where we dive back into the book for some more secrets. Till then, I'll see you. I love you. Be excellent to each other. Bye.